Hello, and good afternoon. My name is Patricia Bona. I'm the president of Alliance Française Miami Metro, and you are seeing on your right side our director, Stanislas Riener. Thank you for joining us in what has really become a monthly rendezvous. And we feature in this rendezvous extraordinary women coming to retrace their journey and their professional journey above all. Parcours de femmes, or itinerary of women, is a program that is intended to inspire young women, but also young men, and really, actually, all of us. And they're inspiring us by telling us how they have dared to embark on a career that was typically embraced by men, or, and you will see it's the case today, they will make us just stop and think at the moment when choices and important choices needed to be made. I am sorry, I have a technical problem with the PowerPoint. I am extremely sorry. While everybody is settling and connecting and settling to listen to Cindy, we have a few logistics and housekeeping to do. You have all been muted, as you can see. We'll unmute you at the end of the program, but you are more than welcome to enter all your questions in the chat. Please enter them. We love to see your faces, and I see already faces that I know here and your smiles. But if you don't want to show your face, just stop the video and just listen to us. Don't get frustrated by technology. By any event we disappear, you just shut down the Zoom and you click on the link, and there we will reappear again. I have to tell you that this program is recorded. We are planning to stay online approximately 1 hour. It is recorded, which is a good thing. We will show it again and put it on YouTube. And if you have to leave early, well, you can listen to the recording again. We had many guests on our program, and we're planning to have many other guests. All these women have inspired us. And here is the time to check your French. They are pioneers, fighters, committed, visionaries, courageous, well, courageous is today, defiant, fearless, rebels, generous, free, creative, bold, and passionate. Today, we are meeting the courageous woman, Cindy Montgenie. During the conversation that Cindy will have with Stanislas, she will recount her childhood in Guyana. I am sorry, I am taken aback that it's not in there. How she left the metropole and how she went to study in France. How her thirst for really international and especially Latin America took her to 8 different countries and back actually, and how that directed all her professional choices, how she had a turning point in her personal life and in her career, how the choices she made were important to rebound and to find the right balance, and how today she's a successful corporate coach who actually teaches also how to rebound and find our balance. And of course, she will tell us about her career and her projects.
Bonsoir, Cindy. Good afternoon, Cindy. Thank you, Patricia. Cindy, it's a pleasure to have you here. And we're going to start with the beginning. So can you tell us a bit about you, about where you're from, and your journey during your childhood and also during college and high school?
Good afternoon, Stanislas. Thanks, Patricia, and thanks for the audience that is joining us today. So I was born and raised in French Guiana. French Guiana, I believe, is still a kind of unknown for a lot of people, but when I was born like 50 years, almost 50 years ago, I'm not 50 yet, but going there, it was even less known. but it's so we are not an island like some people sometimes think. So we are like on the continent. We are between Suriname and Brazil, a French department. And one of our characteristics is that we have the European space base in French Guiana, and there is also a lot of 90% of the territory is the Amazonian. For the people who love ecotourism, this is like a great place to be. So my childhood really, back then and still today, there is like a great quality of life in French Guiana. And I would say also we are quite sheltered. So when I look, even when I was in my teenage years, almost like 30 years ago, and especially now when I compare with the youth, for example, in the US, there is like a lot of social pressure. And that, for example, like I didn't have and my friend didn't have. So it was like kind of free. So a lot of family bonds. But 30 years ago, when I was going to after high school, there was not a lot of opportunity to pursue higher studies. So one of the first courageous decisions that I needed to make was to leave French Guiana and to pursue higher university in France.
So Cindy, before going to when you first reached metropolitan area, how you feel like, especially, you were living in French Guiana, in Cayenne, if I suspect, how it was like to leave your friends, your family, and to leave the Guyana, the French Guiana, to go to France. How was it? Like you were probably like 17, 18 years old?
Yes, I was like 17 and a half going like to 18 years old. It was like a tough decision. I was, and I'm still super close to my family, and especially like the friends, since it was like quite sheltered, good quality life. So it was really difficult, and I chose a path. I think like there is no equivalent in the US, but for those who are French, is Prépa HEC, which was like super intense. So being alone at 8,000 kilometers from my family was a tough situation. But for me at this moment, I was supported by my family. So none of my parents finished high school. So I didn't have like the blueprint of going and after pursuing like a business career, but I got the support of my family, and especially the financial support, because it was having like to support them in French Guiana as I stay, and me in France. So for me, this was super important to take this blessing and to go through the pain, because like really the first year was painful to leave the family and the friends, but it's part of the growth process.
Absolutely. And Cindy, where were you exactly in France where you were studying a Prépa HEC?
So my Prépa HEC was in Montpellier.
Okay.
And then I integrated what was called Subdeco Grenoble, and now is Grenoble École of Management.
Okay, so from French Guiana to the south of France. So
Yeah.
how it felt like for a young girl at the time from Guyana to be in the south of France? What was like the major cultural differences or similarities? And were you also like a part of French Guyanese community in the south of France, or were you alone?
No, so I was alone, like, because really like the Prépa was really intense. And I think like there is like no time or only like to study. So really like the focus was like to survive my first year. I think like nowadays Prépa HEC is 2 years. But when I was doing it, it was like 1 year, and the stat were like 33% of the people, either they were giving up or they didn't get like the school of their choice. 33 needed like to do another year, and 33% were able like to make it like the first intern. So for me, it was really like only work and study like the first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you get a chance to come back to French Guiana during the summer, for instance, during summer break?
No, so that was interesting, and it's part also of the learning, because I think that throughout the conversation we will share things that I've been doing good and other not so good, like mistakes. So I will share so people will not make the same mistake. But when I left French Guiana, so in the summer of 1992, the goal was to come back for Christmas, to spend Christmas with my family. And since it was like really painful emotionally for me. I had an open conversation with my mom when I told her, if I come back in Christmas to be with the family, there is no one in this earth that is going to put me back in a plane to Montpellier. If I come back, I will not have the strength to go. So my mom, who is why I say, so you're not coming back for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
So, but for me, it was part of self-awareness. So I think it was like a strength of understanding that I could go a certain point, but there is a limit, and really going back, be with the family and living again. So what happened for this Christmas, I spent with some family friends in London, and I have like some family member, my grandmother and other uncles that came for Christmas and to Paris. So I met them one day, I think, and I came to French Guiana only at the end of my first year before going back to Grenoble.
Okay. Hey, you mentioned London, so London. So
London.
basically, you were exposed like to English, and going back to French Guiana. I mean, I know there's like about like 40 different languages in French Guiana that is being spoken. Were you exposed when you were in high school? Were you exposed in different languages at the time, or were you fascinated about foreign languages?
Yeah, so I was, the regular curriculum was English when I was 11, and when I was 14 years old, I started Spanish, and I always love both languages, love languages in general. In French Guiana, there is different populations. So you have a community of Chinese, of Lebanese, of Haitian, of Brazilian. So you could hear a lot of different languages, but really in my day-to-day life, it was French and Creole. This is what we were speaking at home with my family. And the English or Spanish, it was the exposure at school, but in my daily life, I was not like practicing those languages. But I have this love for languages that I kept throughout my career at Subdeco and after when I started working internationally.
Absolutely. So after Subdeco, so what was your next step after Subdeco? What did you do after graduating, especially?
So since I was like fascinated with language and with Latin America, and I think like Patricia mentioned it in the introduction, in my last year at Subdeco, in some program, it was the equivalent of master. So I was envisioning myself working in France, working with a major company and in like the import-export or international department, and to take advantage of the languages. So I decided my last year to go to Sweden, and we have a photo, like the winter photo is Sweden, and to improve my English, and also to go to Mexico. So the same year, it was like 3-4 months in Sweden and 6 months in Mexico for my Spanish. So that was the plan. So my last year was spent between those two countries. And when I finished the program in Mexico, so my option was to come back to France, but I was thinking, okay, why I'm going back to France to look for a company who is working or exporting from Latin America if I'm in Latin America. So I started looking for a job, and it was a blessing because in 2 months I found a job in Mexico, and start 1 month later because of visa paperwork, and I started working for HP in Mexico. So I started my career in HP Guadalajara, Mexico.
Okay, so you were like a student at university. You get a chance to do like 2 foreign exchanges, and how does kind of shape also your future? Can you tell us about that? Because like, especially we are at the Alliance Française, our language center, and we definitely also like try to create connections between different university, between students, and encourage also students to go abroad. So how does shape actually your future and your career?
So it was amazing. The experience in Sweden was super interesting because I was in a city called Uppsala, which is the city of students in Sweden. So I was exposed with, 10,000 different nationalities, like Italian and people from Asia. So it was a great experience we were living in kind of communities. So for me, it was an eye opener. It was by nature, I'm more reserved. I'm not like an extrovert. So it was the way also to push myself and to learn. I'm from French Guiana. Even if I study in Grenoble, like winter is not my thing. My thing is the sun and the beaches. And really, like in Sweden, I experienced minus 10 or 20 Celsius. Like it was like a great learning experience. But for me, it was like this exposure to international culture was great. When I came to Mexico, so it was a whole adjustment, because you can imagine like both cultures are totally different. And I did both in the same year. So it was now really an immersion on the Latin culture, the Mexican culture, because each country in Latin America have their own specificity. And it was learning and getting, so the beginning in Mexico was a bit tough, but for those who know Mexico, this is a culture of service. So after like you really fall in love with Mexico, México lindo querido, as I say in Spanish.
Okay, but basically going back to Mexico, what was like the main challenge, especially when you had to look for a job after your first studying exchange? What was the main challenge?
So it was great, and I think it was of the points for those who are starting their career. Like it was not so difficult, because I was doing this master program in Mexico, and so I was exposed to a lot of people who were like working and studying their master. And I had a lot of my teammates who were working at HP. So when I started mentioning that my intention was to start looking for a job, there was an opening in one of the departments. So this is how I knew. I still went through a process. So even if when I started, I was not an HP employee, I was a contractor, I still had 6 interviews. So it was still an intense process. But one of my learning at this moment, and this is something that I've seen later on in my life, is the importance to be positioned and to be like in the right rooms, and to surrounding yourself with people who could help you. At this moment, I didn't know. At this moment, I was doing my master, but looking backwards, I could see how this was really a big blessing. And we know, like still nowadays, being in the university or being in the right rooms could really open the door for you. So this is how I get into HP.
So when you were at the university, did you know, because like you mentioned a certain part of your career, but did you know what exactly you wanted to do at the time when you were studying? Did you have like a perfect, a real image of what you want to do in the future?
I didn't have it. What I have a dream, I have a vision. So I have this dream of an international career. For this reason, for me, it was always important to keep my languages. For this reason, I went to Sweden and to Mexico, but you would have told me like my first job would be internationally and that would start. No, this was not. I was thinking I was going to build a career in France, maybe not in Grenoble, because like winter is not my thing, which was interesting because HP has a big offices in Grenoble. This is one of the biggest employer in the region. And I never see myself working for HP because I didn't see myself like really staying in Grenoble, and I starting for HP in Guadalajara. So it was a kind of irony of life.
Absolutely. So you were a contractor at the time. How it was challenging? Tell us about your life, the job also, and your intention of your position. What it was.
So I had a lot of passion because it was like, this is amazing. This is my first job, and I starting internationally in a multinational. So I had like a lot of fire in my belly, and I think like this is also something important that I look always to keep. And I was thinking also in people who are like, when I was building my career, to never lose this fire, because this is one of the advantages that we have when we are starting our career, if there is like a student or starting, because we don't have the experience, right? We don't have the wisdom that come with age, but we have this fire energy. So I was really working a lot, giving my best. And I was thinking like some people were already, maybe they have like 10 more years of experience, and they were like not so passionate. about their job. So for me, with all the passion, the fire, one of my main objectives was to be able to become either an HP employee or to become an employee at another company, but not spend my entire life being a contractor. So it became one of my goals.
So you were working hard, and what was the concession you had to do?
So my job, I was working in the manufacturing because it was almost more than 20 years ago. So at this moment, there was still no delocalization to China. So HP had a factory in Mexico, and my role was to plan the plans of production for this manufacturing site. So
Okay.
it was interesting. So I was starting super early. And but I loved it because I needed to be at the office before 6:30 a.m. because the worker was starting at 7. So generally I was arriving between 6:15, 6:30, leaving my home at 5:45 or 6. So it was an adventure, and it was totally surreal versus the life in France. So for example, I didn't have a car. I was starting my job, so I didn't have a high salary. So I needed to take the bus. I was renting a room at someone, but I was super happy. And for example, the bus every morning, you can imagine it was maybe a bus for, let's say 50 people. And we were 150 people in the bus because nobody cared. So most of the time I have one leg in the bus, one leg outside. But because I was 22, really, I didn't care. This is not something that I will do now at 47 years old, but I think this is part of the thing that to experiment when you are starting your career.
Yeah, it's all about the journey, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so then so contractor, and how you make your way through a real position, an official position with the firm you were working for.
So I was determined to find a position. So I started applying inside HP, outside HP. And at some point I got 2 offers within HP. So one in Mexico, in Guadalajara, in the site I was working, and another one in Venezuela. And this came also a lesson that could be helpful when we start your career, because I didn't have the mentor and didn't grow up with a family with this experience of business and corporation. Since the beginning, when I look at both, I was really attracted by the position in Venezuela because it looks more like pioneer. I needed to create the position. The one in Mexico was great. It was working with Grenoble in France. A lot of, let's say, more status, more glamour, but I felt more entrepreneur going to Venezuela. So I got both, but because I was young when they made me the offer in Venezuela, and they made me the offer both at the same time. And I started looking at the cost of living and the salary. I realized that I will not be able to really have a good life, because even if I was not making a lot of money in Mexico, with the money I was making, I was having a good life. I could be financially independent, pay my room, and with the new salary they were going to give me, because it would have been a promotion, I would be able to buy a car. So I just say no. I didn't negotiate the offer in Venezuela. Even if I wanted it, I didn't know you could negotiate. So I just say no to Venezuela and I say yes to Mexico. So when I say yes to the offer in Mexico, the hiring manager in Venezuela tell me, but why are you saying no to us? And I say, because the number that don't add, and I cannot leave Mexico and not be able to leave. But why you didn't negotiate? And I say, I didn't know I could negotiate a salary. So he came back with another offer, but also because I was young and I felt a lot of pressure, because I think this is his part. Sometimes when you are younger, we feel everything could end tomorrow. There is no other options. I said, you know what? I already gave my word to Mexico team. So even if I told them Venezuela is going to do a counter offer, I say I cannot change. So twice I rejected the offer in Venezuela, and twice I accepted the offer in Mexico. But honestly, I was miserable. I knew, because now with a new offer, I could have a good life in Venezuela. And this is what I wanted. So after saying yes twice to the Mexico team, they announced me, and I know they were going to announce me in the org chart. I just said I cannot do it. And I called the hiring manager in Venezuela, and I told him, you might think that I'm crazy because twice I rejected, but I really want to go. So if you're willing to accept me, I will go back and I will reject, because I have not signed yet the contract with Mexico, but I gave my word. So he said, no, I want you. He gave me the opportunity, went back to the Mexico team, and I was like feeling bad, but I say, I'm not going to sign the contract and I'm leaving to Venezuela. So one of the learning here is the importance of following your gut, but also start surrounding yourself, because if I had mentors, if I had people, this decision process would not have been like so messy. And this is how I went to Venezuela. This is the area pass that you see on the slide.
Absolutely, but it's a bold move, especially when you're young. To maybe like, how did you feel like about? Were you like under pressure, like feeling like you must accept every type of offer people are giving you, or where you feel like, well, I'm I have like a lot of competencies, I have a lot of skills, and I'm sure I will find the best offer I can get. How you felt at the time?
So it was like a bold decision to go, because when I find both offers, because I wanted an offer to be like a full employee. So when I got both, most of the people, especially my friends in Mexico, because there is always a part, because in all the country, except when I was living in France, but in Sweden or in Mexico, in Venezuela, even in Miami, I was never plugged into the French community. My goal was to be like involved locally. So and it takes time to really be part of like the local fabric of a country. And in Mexico, after 2 years, my point of reference for me is always when you started to get invited to weddings of like local people, you made it. And I was invited at least like to 2 weddings. So I was like finally part. And suddenly, so people couldn't get, why are you leaving to Venezuela? Venezuela was not the Venezuela today. It was Venezuela in 1998. But people could not understand. And the position in Mexico at this moment was like more status, more glamour, and even my family, because why are you going to start again in Venezuela? So yes, there was like a pressure to stay in Mexico, especially when both of us became the same on the economic level. But for me, I don't know, there was this call for adventure. And I say like, this is now that I can do it. And so I did it, and it worked out well.
Wonderful. And tell us more about the next stage.
The next stage in Venezuela?
Yeah.
No,
the next stage after, okay, so the next stage, yes?
In Venezuela, absolutely. Tell us about your experience in Venezuela.
So Venezuela was another, because it's a kind of starting from scratch. So also there was like the whole painful process of getting,
sorry.
Yes, getting there is a question?
No, go ahead, Cindy.
Okay, so build like new relationship. And at some point it was like much challenging for me. So there was at some point, did I make the right choice? Like at the work level, it was great. Like, this is what I wanted, like the challenges, but like personally, it was like challenges for me to make. So at some point there was some doubt. I even intended to go back to France and to apply to a position in Grenoble that I didn't want. But it didn't work out. And at some point I thought it was like the end of the world. But another opportunity came to go to Mexico City. And this opportunity was one of the catalysts of accelerating my career at HP. And so I'm glad that I did the trip in Venezuela, made the work in me to at the end build a new relationship. And when I left Venezuela, I was sad because I had built again new relationship, but I knew that I did the work, like both on the personal side and also on the work side. And this is how, and I arrived to Mexico again and then to Miami.
So let's just go back on the job interview in France, in Grenoble. So far it seems like your career was kind of smooth in a way, but it was like the first, like, let's say, concrete or tangible interview where you're not getting accepted. So how you felt about that and how you bounce back?
It was like, for me, I really felt and that it was the end of the world, because I didn't want, since for me going to Venezuela, I made the decision against everybody's really advice. So I say, work was well. So the work was well, but I was like really miserable personally. So I did not want to go back in France without nothing, like it was pride. So when the opportunity to apply to Grenoble was really going well, because I arrived like at the finalists, I really thought like, this is the end of my world. I think I was like 23, 24. And of course it's not, because it's never the end of the world. But for me, it was like really, like, I really think like I'm stuck in this country. I cannot go back because of my pride without nothing. And this is, at this moment, I said, okay, I need to make it work, because I will not go back into France without a job. And so I made a mental shift to make the most of it and to find a way to build a relationship. And I made that great friendship.
Okay. So then you return again to Mexico and you get a better position at this time.
Yeah, Mexico City. So it was like a big catalyst, because I moved when I was in Venezuela and Mexico and Guadalajara. It was manufacturing, supply chain, operation. And this big catalyst in my career was moving to marketing and sales. So I was moving to a product management position in Mexico City. And this like really accelerate your career when you can do those moves. So it was huge.
So how old were you at the time? And
how old I was?
Yeah.
I was 99, so I was 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have like a management position in a huge company in Mexico City.
I was not yet a manager of people, but I had like a big responsibility of having like P&L responsibility, profit and loss for business unit. What this moment was like the future. It was consumer PC. It was the beginning of the consumer PC era. So it was like a huge challenge, huge opportunity.
Okay. And after all this, so tell us like how you raise your career also as well.
So this was the catalyst. I was a part of the Mexican Latin America headquartered team based in Mexico. The company closed the office and moved us to Miami. So this is where I arrived in Miami. And I kept really ascending, and I became a manager. So when I was like 30 years old. And so it was Cindy 3.0, if you want to change. And this is where I get like really a big acceleration in my career. I became a manager of people. I had a business unit at some point that was $80 million a year. 6 years later was like $900 million a year. So of course, it's a different type of pressure, different type of team. And if you can go to the Cindy 3.0, you will see that there was like few women, and still there is few women in tech. So I was leading like a team mainly of men. So it was like an interest time, and everything was great, was amazing what I was living. But through this moment, also there is life. And personally, one of my values is always a personal vision, and my career follow my personal vision, is not the way around. And twice I rejected a promotion because of things that were going at this moment in my personal life, and I didn't want to take on even more responsibility. And at some point, when I was still like at the top, and the business unit was like 80 million 6 years ago, was like $900 million now. My little sister, even if she was my little sister, but she was already like married. She has 2 kids. I'm not married. I don't have kids. But she got diagnosis with cancer. And this was like a big big thing in the family, and she passed away through the process. So she passed away. She was just 31 years old. Our kids were 2 and 6. So for family, it was like a tough situation. And at some point in the process, I was with my sister in the hospital day and night for 3 months. So I left Miami, go back to France to to be like helping my family and my sister. And when I came out of this, when my sister passed away and I came back to HP, so I took a leave of absence. At this moment, I made a decision that could seemed crazy, but I asked for a demotion because also one of my value is like holistic care. For this reason, you have this photo of pray, faith in God. So I'm a woman of faith. And for me, it was super important, like to renew myself spiritually, physically, emotionally. So that seems crazy, but I knew like I needed to deal it now at this moment and after retake the career. So when I came back after the leave of absence, I took a demotion and I rebuilt again the career during the 3.0, and maybe 4 years later, I was again running a business unit after the demotion.
So when you took the decision to take the demotion, did you know you will be able like to bounce back after? Did you know it was just like a sort of break, but eventually will come back to a higher position? Or it was like really uncertainty?
I didn't know, but I know that I needed to do it because even if, and thanks God, I hope like this will be the most horrible experience. I will not go through this again, never in my life. But I knew that at this moment, if I didn't take care of me, I might have gone on, but maybe some years later, I would have consequences, because I think like it was important for me to deal with the pain. I lost a lot of weight in this process. I lost my hair. So I knew that if Cindy was not going to be well, even if I might have been able to do the job, but maybe I would have do the job, I don't know, 6 months, one year, and maybe, I don't know, maybe after a nervous breakdown, because I was not well. So for me at this moment, I knew like, if Cindy is well and spiritually, emotionally, and physically, I will be able like to take care of the career. Like, because if there is like no body, no mind, no spirit, the career will not be sustained. So for this reason, even if it was crazy, I have no doubt, and still now I know it was the best decision that I made.
And how was it like? How your people and especially your team took the demotion? Like how they felt? How was the support like you get from maybe like your staff member and also like your directors and so on?
I get a lot of support and I get a lot of support from my managers, because I think it was kind of unheard, but they supported me. They find a new job for me. So really like the support and even like through the process of going through with my sister, like I got like a great support, because especially since my sister, she had like my nephew and I did not have kids. Like everybody knew before the sickness, like everybody knew about my nephew, my niece, because I always had photo, and everybody knew that I was always like super family oriented. So I got a great support from my team and from my managers. Super grateful for this.
And how do you maybe an advice also for the audience right here, because like, you know, it's a part of the journey, it's part of life, I guess, you know, and unfortunately this can happen to everybody here. But how do you say stop? How do you say, okay, right now I need to focus on myself and I need to recenter on myself and my well-being? How do you do that?
For me, is value, like, and I think like with this time, so I was like in my mid-30s when this happened. So I think like when you're younger, you're still like looking for yourself. But when you are like in your mid-30s, like it was clear like family was important. So I needed to be there for my brother-in-law, my mom, sister, nephew, niece. So like for me, it was clear. So it was like my value, that my faith, because I'm a woman of faith, so there was like prayer also like to guide my decision, that it was what needed to be done. And also to understand that sometimes, yes, life happen, and we are at this moment in the pandemic, but really like cancer, my sister passed away from cancer, is really a plague, and unfortunately like many families I heard by this sickness or the type of sickness. So you need to understand that life is going to have like ups and downs, and we need to develop like this resilience to bounce forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's the Cindy 3.0. And then there's like the other Cindy, right?
Yes. So after this, so when I came back again, running like a business unit at HP, they did what they've done 16 years before. They closed the headquarters in Miami and they moved it to Houston. And at this moment, I say, I don't think that Houston is where I want to go. And again, because I'm a woman of faith, there was like always like the prayer part to look for guidance. So I made another decision, was like courageous and kind of crazy decision that also a lot of people, they didn't understand why I made the decision to leave HP, because by rejecting the offer to move to Houston, I needed to quit. So I quit HP and I faced at this moment the choice to go back to corporate America, but throughout like those years, like 20 years had passed. So I spent like 20 years at HP. And it was not easy for me to imagine myself at this moment going back to another corporation. And because we are in the United States and the American dream, I say, okay, let's also like prayer and guidance to start my own business, which was a kind also of bold decision to do. And this is why I'm starting the reinvention as a speaker, trainer, leadership coach, and future of work expert.
And going back on your journey, especially when after school, when you started being enrolled in an international program and when you first started working for HP, have you ever envisioned working as an entrepreneur for yourself, for your own business, and helping also others, or is something new that happened because of your journey?
I think like I had this in the back of my mind because working for a big company like HP was amazing, and really like this multinational, you are part of so big project. Because for example, like when I moved to Mexico City, I launched the consumer PC lineup in all the country but Mexico. So part of really amazing, the vision, the benefit, you work a lot. So I think like for a lot of people in this company, and it was my case, you wonder, what if I put this energy into a personal project, but at the end, you don't have like all the support that a multinational have. So I'm not sure that I would have made this leap. If maybe I would have, I don't know if the headquarters was still in Miami, because there was like, and this is something I'm super happy of what I'm doing as entrepreneur and growing my company. But there is a great perk when you are working for multinational, like the brain, the project, the scale, the scope are like super, super great. And that you don't have when you are running your own business unless you start scaling, right?
Okay, so tell us what are the good things and the challenge of being your own boss, let's say.
Now, for me, what is great is like the growth in terms of leadership skill, business skill. What I loved about my way when I was at HP, like the culture is really entrepreneurial. So I had like a lot of different projects. But what I've learned, it's easy to be an entrepreneur with someone else's money. And it's a different thing to do it with your money. So the learning process was huge. Also, there is something that was interesting. I was in sales at HP, but because it's a multinational, like everybody wanted to sell HP products. And when I made the transition to sell my service, it was like a totally different experience. It's still a totally different experience. There is one thing also that I've learned, like having a card that say HP and you're a director at HP, a lot of doors will open, but when it's your own logo. So for me, like the learning process at this moment, I'm not planning to go back to corporate America because I am enjoying what I'm doing. But I know if for some reason there is like a great opportunity and I come back, I know that I will come back like much richer than someone who spent like their entire life in corporate America. Because starting something from scratch, this is like an amazing experience. And this is what entrepreneurs and business owners do. Like you start from scratch. So
okay,
a great learning experience, and the impact. because what I'm doing since I'm not doing is the life is on the human capital, like the impact on the transformation for me also, this is priceless.
Yeah, can you tell us more about like what you do and what moves you also about what you do and why you choose to enter this career also as well?
So my platform is the future of work. So it was before COVID because I started in 2017, but now everybody is talking about the future of work. And the reason why I choose it is because we were already seeing the trends that COVID just accelerated of the need to really upgrade our leadership skill set, mindset, the way we under stress. And so this is what I'm doing. So I'm doing it through keynote speaking. So those are more like motivational leadership talk. So I speak on leadership, of women leadership, career. I do also leadership training when we can go deeper on those new skill set, emotional intelligence, agility, growth mindset, collaboration, communication, influence. And also I do the coaching, the executive coaching.
Okay. Just before going to the Cindy 5.0, maybe, can you tell us exactly, for instance, what type of advice and coaching you do when it goes to women leadership?
So at this moment, my focus is being with companies to develop their women, so high potential women, because not a lot of companies, but at this moment, the company I've been working with, they've already been working the last decades or 5 years on hiring more women. So you have a kind of, you could have sometimes like even the 50-50, but when you look at leadership, it's still heavily men. So my goal is to develop the women talent so they could expand the leadership toolkit and they could position themselves stronger for leadership position. So this is mainly what I've been doing in the landscape of women leadership development.
And why did you choose this path? Was it also like in relation to your entire experience as a woman in a high position service?
Yeah, so for this reason, I choose like the future of work because I love the tech industry, but I'm not an engineer, I'm not a data scientist, but I wanted to stay in the industry. So what I love about the future of work is like most of the companies now are becoming a tech company because tech is really important for all companies. So it was like to bring my corporate experience to other company and even for big company because I've been working with Intel, with Microsoft, to bring this aspect of helping the talent because I know inside what is lack. And since at this moment, I'm still alone in my business, I cannot tackle the whole future of work platform because this is huge and one person cannot tackle it. So for this reason, I decided to focus on 3 pillars. So closing the diversity leadership gap because I can speak as a woman in tech, developing the new leadership skill set and mindset, and tackling stress because stress at work can prevent innovation and high performance. And even though I had like huge responsibility because I was always conscious of like the holistic care, by the grace of God, I never experienced burnout. And for this reason, now my goal is to help people to build a thriving career and without like killing yourself in the middle because you don't need to do it. So yes, to answer your question, it was based on my experience, based on the trend, I decided to focus on those 3 pillars.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Cindy. And what's next, Cindy? We heard about like Cindy 4.0. Is there like a Cindy 5.0?
So I don't know. So at this moment, we still need like to grow Cindy 4.0 because we still need like to be able like to scale and to have more people in the team. So I'm not alone. And yes, I think there will definitely be a Cindy 5.0 and 6.0 because I do believe in like always learning, reinventing yourself. And this quote is great. It's awesome because it's really like everything that we have, we were born with it. Like each of us, we are different because we have like this talent and the gift, and our responsibility is always like to develop those. And even as a leader, when you have a team, you are not putting something into your your team, you are really cultivating what they have inside. So we will see where Cindy 5.0 will go.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. And before maybe we go to the question of the audience, I have a question also as well. Like, what would be, you know, since you evolved in the tech industry during the mid 90s and early 20s, what would be like your advice that you can give to young women, but also young men who probably enroll in university or high school, they want to work in the tech industry? What would be the main challenge and what they will like have to face?
So at this moment, there is like a huge need for everything that is STEM because of how technology is becoming so important in our daily life and work. So definitely the students who are like embracing a STEM career will have a great advantage. However, not everybody is wired for STEM. So even when you're not wired, you still can envision a career in tech. For example, this was my case. I'm not an engineer, but I was able to have like a great career because the space is so huge that there is a fit. But you need to be part of the ecosystem. So I would recommend to start plugging into industry conferences, meeting tech executive, so you could start building your network within the industry.
Do you think there's like more opportunities, or let's say there's more awareness to network and to get ready and able to network nowadays compared like to when you first started? Is it easier, you think?
So it was becoming easier. Now because of COVID, it's more challenging because suddenly everything was virtually, so it was tougher to meet people. Now we will go to a hybrid world, but generally I think it's easier because more and more of the companies are more open to mentorship, sponsorship, and coaching. So of course it's going always to depend on the person that you are meeting. But let's say like if you meet someone that is not really open, keep looking because there are like really a lot of people who are willing to invest themselves in other people. Yes.
Right. And maybe like my last question, and I will let you guys have some questions also as well. But you were mentioning also about, you talk about like diversity, you talk about like inclusion of women in the tech industry. Is there like a change that is happening nowadays? Like is the mindset, the mentality of the business, the industry is changing?
Yes and no. So I think like all the major corporation, I do believe there is a real intention, even if sometimes I'm surprised by some companies more like words and not so much action. But I would say like there is, I've been meeting like a lot of big companies who are like really intentional in building inclusive culture and giving and developing all the different type of talents. With a mid-sized company or small company might not be so top of mind, but I do believe like at this moment is still like a better time to really aspire because many companies are really intentional on building those inclusive culture and workplaces.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. Patricia, maybe you have like some other question and also like to close the conversation.
I guess that the real question here, but it's going to be difficult to sort out, is what do you think your most courageous act really was?
The most courageous act?
Your most courageous move. Looking back.
Yeah, looking back, I think it was maybe when I took the leave of absence before like the demotion, because a lot of people didn't get it because it was my sister, it was not like my child or my spouse. And it was a kind of crazy, like you're top of your career. And of course, like no one knew that we will lose my sister. So it was like a lot of, so I did it. And I don't regret it because we lose it. And I think like if I have not make the decision and we would have lost her, I think like all my life I would have been living like with regret why I put my career before my sister. So I would
really,
say,
it was a tricky question because I think that between the 100 to the 500, we just saw 5 courageous acts and more on your part, and you really embody in our parcours de femme, the courageous woman, and I thank you very much to have come and explain to our audience tonight. But we will certainly we have taped this, and we will certainly give it to to younger generation and to young high school and college girls to see that all the lessons that you have taught us by just letting us walk into your path or into your journey, actually, which is of course just starting your journey, the journey of you as an inspirational woman. I
Thank
think
you.
we have some question, right?
We have a question, absolutely. We have Anna on the chat. Anna, I'm gonna unmute you if you can please ask your question.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Hi, Cindy. Thank you so much for this talk that you had. I'm a young student. I'm 22 years old. I am very happy that you have a great
breaking up.
Oh, you're breaking up a bit, Anna. If you can fix your connection, or you can write it down.
Why don't you read? Yeah, why don't you read the
too.
questions in the chat?
I had a business student. I'm passionate about
Nope.
Oh, Anna, unfortunately,
Can
we
you
cannot
hear me?
hear you properly. Oh, it's better, but if you have difficulties, you can just like write down the question in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer the question.
Awesome. Okay.
Although it's getting better right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So my question was, you recommend, or what field, or yes, what positions would you recommend for a student? For example, for me, I'm the best example, who wants to get in a tech company, who wants to start in a tech company, but I don't have like a focus yet on what do I want to do with my career. So what will be a good position where I can have a visibility of all the opportunities that tech companies offer?
So even if you don't have at this moment like the full vision, what I would recommend is to identify which type of job. Like if, for example, you have already a STEM profile, like science, data management, those are like hot field at this moment in the tech. So to position yourself for those type of role. If it's more marketing or more operation, I started in operation. Part of my my specialty when I did my university in Grenoble was management of technology. So what I will say is like at least pick a field where you would like to start working and start seeing. And maybe at some point you might say, okay, this is not really what I want, you change, but you need at least to define what type of role you want to play in the tech ecosystem. And if you're not yet sure, so start attending networking events. At this moment in Miami, there is, I don't know if you're based in Miami, because I know like this was promoting Zoom, so from anywhere people could get connected. But at this moment in Miami, there is like a huge movement of startup. And there is, for example, a lot of free meetup. There is like Women in Tech Miami. So I would really recommend like to start mingling in this ecosystem and to understand what could resonate with you. I don't know if that's helped, Anna.
I think she's muted because of the bad connection. Do we have any question in the chat? I can't see the chat, Stanislas.
No, but we have like a lot of support also as well. You know, thank you, Cindy, for sharing your journey. And we indeed appreciate all that. We indeed.
Thank you. And maybe like
some everybody.
Yeah, and some takeaways also, like, because like it's true, like a lot of bold and courageous decision, but also what is important, I think, also in my journey is like the support, because either it was like the support of family, the support at work, or even now, because for example, now in my entrepreneurial journey, I'm like reconnected to people I met like 25 years ago. So this is something while living in a tech-driven world, but I would really recommend when you're starting your career to really build those great relationships, to be careful, even if at the beginning for me, it was not intentional, but to position yourself in key role, what you study, what you meet, how you serve. In something that I really appreciate in the US is all the different non-profit, the opportunity to serve and to meet great people, because the quality of your relationship will have like a big impact of your career. So also kind of takeaway, because a career is never built by one person. It's always built by the team you have around yourself, as an entrepreneur or as a professional. So I also wanted like to highlight this.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up. We have this tradition at the Alliance that we all unmute ourselves. I hope this is going to work. And so that you please join me for a round of applause for Cindy.
And thank you for everybody who got connected today. And thank you, Stanislas and Patricia, for the invitation. It was a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you so much. And thank you for really inspiring us to be even more courageous every day.